Hello, thank you for joining us this evening on another episode of Breaking Reality. My name is Joshua McGuire, and I am your host. And with us tonight, we have Liz Foy with us, and we are going to be discussing the spiritual energy of money. Yay! Hi, Liz. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm so excited to be back on.
I'm glad to have you back. Why don't you go ahead and tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Just so people know who you are, what you're coming from, your background and stuff. Because you've got some credentials to be talking about this. So,
Cool. So, my name's Liz Foy. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and the last episode that I was on energetic boundaries. And I love talking about the energy of pretty much everything. And I have been a business owner of a brick and mortar business for over 10 years. And I do emotional healing and coaching just about anyone that's really wanting to do that, but also for a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs. I found that that's kind of my niche. So, with that, we work with a lot of the energetics of money. I've been a Reiki practitioner and master for about 10 years, and I like to travel, I like to be in nature, and I just love talking about the energy of everything, including money. So, I'm excited to dig into this and see where it goes.
I I'm looking forward to this. We had to put this conversation off once, and Demian was going to be there with us on that one, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. I wasn't able to make it, and I think even you was kind of feeling a little down that night too, and we just all kind of said, let's reschedule for another time. So,
Yep.
um, all right, here we are. We're doing this. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you get into this topic because I think you're gonna be able to kick us off and get us going in the right direction rather than me sitting here.
Awesome. And chime in whenever you've got a question or anything kind of like
Absolutely.
in you. And I encourage all of the listeners to pay attention to any of like those pings that you get, whether it's an excitement ping or whether it's a like, oh gosh, that triggers me, that hurts, that brings something uncomfortable up. Because all of us have these attachments to money, different stories of money. I've actually led workshops called Heal Your Money Story because we all have some story connected with money. And I really love talking about money because it's an energy. Yes, money is necessary in America and in most countries. I assume that
Unfortunately.
yeah, I assume that most listeners are in America, but yeah, money is pretty much required everywhere. And someone recently, I don't know where this was quoted from, but somebody said, it's easier for us to think about some sort of apocalypse than our world that's not dealing with money.
Oh
Like
yeah.
we cannot imagine not dealing with money. And I do in the work that I do with not only business owners but also with individuals. I do a lot of emotional healing work, and a lot of times that has to do with money. So tonight I'm going to share some of the different exercises that are kind of like blanket exercises that everyone can do on their own, because I do believe that we can all improve our relationship with money. And that might mean that we make more money, we receive more money in some way. Great. I would love to hear if there's like any success stories of people that like put these things into action afterwards, of money suddenly coming to them. But yeah, like let's do it. And there's always healing involved. Whether that means that the result of that is more money coming to us, I think that the root, like the intention of doing any of that healing work has to be a true intention of wanting your overall energy to be healed and wanting an overall neutrality versus going into the healing experience of, okay, I want to do this healing so that I can make this money. And I have worked with clients like that. And it's interesting because when they come in, it's very different energy. And often we have to then do some pulling back the layers of, okay, why is that need, that desire so strong? And we typically have to do some of that healing before we even get to the level of healing the relationship with money.
All right.
Yeah. So want me to go ahead and like give some of the examples?
Well, I want to start off by letting everybody know if you see a twinge on my face, it might just be me dealing with some physical pains tonight, though, too. Some of it may be some of the money discussion, though, too. So you'll have to figure it out. It's one of those hit or miss. You get to figure it out as you go tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Keep
Yep.
track and let me know which ones you think are which. We'll tally it up and we'll see.
Interesting. As you say that, I'm actually going to speak on physical pains. Sometimes, and I used to be a massage therapist. So my brick and mortar business is a massage therapy business. I was a massage therapist for 10 years until I started transitioning into more energy healing and coaching. And there was often, can you guess the place of the body that typically holds money issues?
For me, it is like right below my neck, like in my shoulders and my and also my lower back.
Interesting. So right below your shoulders. So like
Like,
that's on the back.
like if you go straight back on my back
Yep.
right here, that's where it's at.
Okay. Interesting. Um, so I
That's
wonder
where
what
all my stress and tension is at, and all my stress and tension is over finances.
do you typically feel it in that spot first or in the low back first?
Both.
Okay. Low back is where most people hold financial stress. So that is an area that I often, and I might have to mute if my dogs go on a crazy barking spree. I just heard
That's
them.
fine.
Like, yeah, low back is where most people hold a lot of financial strain. And when I was a massage therapist, there was this certain feeling, certain energy of it. And now that I understand the energetics and the spiritual side of money a bit more, I can now pick up on this certain, almost like this cloudiness that people would have when it almost attached to their low back as like a negative entity. And some of the people that had that, they were coming in with low back pain and I would then feel that energy, a lot of them had a lot of money. A lot of them had a lot of money. And so it was interesting because it's different than having financial stress of, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills? I wish that I had more. I can't provide for myself. I want more for my family. A lot of times the people that were coming in, they had more than enough. Yet they had this financial strain because it had almost become this negative entity that was like grabbing onto them and driving them for all of their actions forward.
It was becoming their ego.
Mm-hmm.
The money was becoming their ego. They had to hold at a certain level to fit into a societal class that they were expected to be upheld to.
Yeah. And when we think of like privilege too, a lot of those people that it becomes part of their ego and a big part of their identity, that's such a huge part that it's so tough to imagine anything different because it has been a part of your identity your entire life. The people that you associate have that as part of their identity. The business that you're in, like all of these parts of ourselves, for someone that has a lot of financial wealth and that financial abundance is part of their identity, they've likely had that for a long time, or it's something that they really pride themselves on, so their ego kind of like skyrocketed off,
Right.
having to do with money. So I find it interesting that money stress affects pretty much everybody. Like even those that have money, it can still have this like negative hold on them.
Oh yeah, I can totally completely see that. I mean, and it's that whole thing of money doesn't buy happiness too. Just because you have money doesn't necessarily mean you're happy.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. I've had varying levels of, financial abundance because abundance is so varied. I've had varying levels of financial abundance throughout my life, and there are times where I have felt more free when I have less, but I still have enough and I still recognize my privilege. So I want to be sure that like I throw that caveat in there of like, I've always had privilege. I always know that in some way I will be okay. So even when I'm at like the worst financial spot myself, that's very different from someone else who struggles a lot more. And I have found that some of the times where I have the least, I still feel just as abundant when I have a lot of money and I'm incredibly financially blessed at those times. You know, it doesn't change. I've realized for me since I've done the healing work around money, I should say, it doesn't feel that different to me. There are moments where I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills and I feel so abundant. And there have been times where I have a lot of money. I'm like stressed about little things and it's dumb, but there's opportunity for healing and growth there.
Right.
So I'm going to give some examples. And before I do that, I want to give some fun testimonials of some of my clients' results from some of this work because that feels...
They're all okay with this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, thank you for checking. Oh, I love that you checked because that means so much for consent of sharing the stories. And I'm not going to share their names, but the ones that I'm sharing have given me permission to use the details.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for checking. Oh, I love that. So there are two that stand out to me as like really incredible because of the amount. And those are the ones that stand out to me as like the most impactful because there's a big amount of money that was like within 2 weeks of the healing. One client, we did a lot of work around taxes. They actually didn't want to make more money because they didn't want to pay taxes on it. And I have seen that a lot. And there's a certain way that I go in with healing people, facilitating the healing with people when it has to do with a potential hard truth of when you make that money, yes, the money is going to go to taxes. And no, you might not agree with where that goes.
Right.
And so we often have to sit with some of that discomfort. And that client that once we cleared a lot of the tax information, like the tax trauma basically of how much they were going to have to pay for taxes, they ended up making over $10,000 more in the next month, unexpected.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was like incredible. And it all made sense. Like when I then in my mind was like reviewing the session, I was like, oh, that makes sense how you are then able to see opportunities because there's so much with healing that not only do you reset your nervous system and reset your energetics, but you're then allowing yourself to see opportunities that present themselves.
Right.
And then another client, they made within 48 hours, they made $8,000 unexpectedly. And I was like,
wow.
All right, like this is great. Both of them, of course, I like made jokes of like, all right, so like, do I get a bonus? Like, do I get a percentage of that? Is that how this works?
Yeah, how's this work out? You know, this is the interesting part. I've not had to deal with this yet.
So the tax stuff was one issue, and then the other one, it was a really complex issue around what they were offering in their business that we kind of shifted, and we did quite a bit of healing on the energetics of money. But one of the most powerful exercises that I have clients do, whether one-on-one or in like a group setting. So I will, if anyone like has something to like take notes on, like grab a sticky note and like just make a quick note for this exercise to go back and do it later. or open up your calendar app and like put it in your calendar for tomorrow or something. So when we talk about the energy of money, money is a relationship. Just like a romantic relationship, just like a business relationship, it's a relationship. And it's a relationship that we are always going to be in. So it's like a parent relationship almost. Like you're essentially always going to be
right.
Have some connection to family of origin. You know, there's no divorcing it, there's no leaving it, like you gotta have it. So if you look at money in that way, think of some of the things that you say about money. And now imagine that someone is sitting across from you in a chair. I sometimes will like put a $20 bill on a chair across from a client if we're in person. Be like, okay, what are some of the things that you've said about money? And then imagine saying that to money as if it's a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what are, when we think of that, if you feel like sharing anything that comes to your mind, feel free.
I don't have anything coming to my mind right off of the top of my head right now. Like
some of the common ones are things like, whether you say them out loud or you just think them, is like, there's never going to be enough.
Right.
It's always going to be required. And a lot of times there's like a desire to get away when that's, the wording around it. There's never enough, like, things along the lines of like, it's not good enough. Like, yeah, I made $100, but I really needed $500 to pay my bills. It's like just all of these ways of saying like, you're not good enough. You're never there for me. I wish I didn't have to deal with you. And if you were to think about hearing some of those things, it wouldn't feel good. Like, it would feel really shitty when you think about like if someone were to say some of those things to you. So as an exercise for people to do at home is writing down some of the things that you say to money, or say about money, or think or feel about money. And then just sit with like, that's not great. There's then, if you imagine how you receive that, like letting yourself feel some of that despair and then doing something to release the energy of that, and then giving a new statement. So a lot of the work I do has to do with forgiveness. So you could then go into as if money was a separate entity, across from you. I give money permission to forgive me for saying that it's never there for me. I give money permission to forgive me for XYZ. And then replacing, what do you want that relationship to be like? I give money permission to flow to me in expected and unexpected ways. I give myself permission to improve my relationship with money. There's so many things that, you can look at what you traditionally say that you don't want to be a reality.
Give me just a second, Liz.
Yeah.
I need to pop up another screen. You can keep talking. People will be able to hear you, I think.
Okay.
But I need to change something, or something's going to keep popping up. I thought I had a program shut down. But
no problem.
I don't do this right, everyone's going to know where I live.
That's not good. Yeah, no, we don't want that. Oh golly.
They may have gotten flashed it already, so.
Oh
no. You know what? If I get a stalker, so be it.
Oh man. Oh, that's so funny. I am so side tangent. That's something that I'm like not paranoid about, but like that I'm really protective of, like not only for myself, but I see friends that post on social media of like the front of their house with their address, or they're walking in their neighborhood and you can see all the street signs. And I'm the weird friend that I'll like reach out and be like, hey, just so you know, you shouldn't put that on social media.
Right.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huge secret where my hometown is, if you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
Come find me if you want. I'll say hi.
Oh, that's great.
I'll make you a cup of tea.
Look at you inviting people in if they stalk you. How friendly.
I mean, it's hot outside.
Oh, that's funny.
Did you ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, little bits.
Uncle Iroh from there is such a great character. He was kind of like a redemption character. And his whole thing was tea. He was all about having a nice cup of jasmine tea.
Aw. Nice.
You should watch it. It's really good. It's got some really for a children's show. It's got some really deep spiritual lessons and teachings in there, especially the one that they do on the chakras.
I
It's
saw that one.
Yeah, it is insanely in depth.
I was blown away. One of my roommates was watching it at the time, and I walked through, and it was like talking about chakras, and I like stopped and was like, what? And I'm realizing now, like, the more things that I see, there are some kids shows, and then there's just like some other like anime stuff that I'm like, whoa, like, do people realize what they're teaching about spirituality? Like, this is great. I love
Oh
it.
yeah. I like some of the like Spirited Away.
Mm-hmm.
Her
Yep.
her connection with the wolf spirits and everything and the tree spirits and
Yep.
or well no, I'm thinking Princess Mononoke. Princess Mononoke.
I feel like I've seen that too, because that sounds so familiar.
Yeah, it's one of the big Studio Ghibli ones where it's all about the tree spirits and there's a boar spirit that was infected and had become tainted and evil and it
What's that?
Princess Mononoke.
Okay. Cool. Pulling that one up to look at later.
It's worth it. It's one of my favorite out of those. But Spirited
Yeah.
Away was really good too.
Mm-hmm. So when we think about like kid stuff, I find it really interesting how young kids are when they start learning about money.
Oh
And
God, yes.
I mean, always.
I mean,
Oh,
we give them, chocolate coins. We give them plastic fake money when they're young and they're playing and stuff. We teach them to play with money. We deal with money starting as in kindergarten. You're learning to work with money,
yep.
or
Yeah.
preschool if you go to preschool.
Yeah. Kids' toys now have, credit cards,
Yeah.
and Tooth Fairy brings money, and like
Yep.
there's all these things of money and like saving up for money. And
Birthday cards come with money.
so I mean, it's so ingrained in kids even from a young age. And a lot of where we get our money story came from either childhood, or a lot of it was even passed down in our epigenetics, to where we literally have our genes are carrying beliefs that our parents and multiple generations before us had. So when we look at the energetics of money and how our relationship with money works, it often is bringing it up. Whoopsies. It is often bringing up stories that started from such a young age, and sometimes stories and energies that aren't our own. Sometimes I will have clients even work on disconnecting cords from other people to release energetic blockages having to do with abundance, because they've been carrying stories that were passed on from their parents or their grandparents.
Right.
Like looking over notes about money. And I think that it's interesting too when we talk about abundance and money and the energetics of all of that. When we work with abundance, I mean, money buys us things.
Right.
And we look at abundance, that has to do with, yes, money, but also abundance of a variety of other things. So it's like this overlapping thing of like money, abundance, and like money and things that money buys, and money and the abundance of time and freedom and nature, and things like water. Like, this is abundance.
Right.
Sometimes if people are so stuck on money and healing their money story, sometimes you have to like find a backdoor in to healing to be able to connect with the energy of abundance before you can really do the healing and connection with money and financial abundance. So if that is the case with anyone that, just feels like every cell in their being just like locks down, when they think about money, then I recommend finding kind of a back door, a side window that's opened where you can feel, full body feel what abundance feels like. And water is one of my go-tos, like clean drinking water. That is something that literally every single day I spend time not just like being like, oh, this is really great. Like I can just turn on the sink and have clean drinking water,
All right.
but like truly being in awe and receiving that abundance. And when you can connect with that energy of receiving abundance with something as simple as water, clean air, nature that you can put your feet on, things like that, that most of us have access to, if you can connect to that energy of abundance, it can become easier to connect with the abundance of money.
Absolutely makes sense.
So some of the money story stuff, you know, we talked about talking to money, and I'm just gonna like keep going. That's cool.
For sure.
Okay. I'm like, let me just like keep chatting.
Hey, like I said earlier, I'm dealing with some of the health issues and stuff. I have taken some medication, so I'm a little chilled tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm good just to let you go. You're giving us good information. If I've got a question or if someone asks a question, I'll chime in and I'll get it in there. But other than that, I'm just here.
Perfect. All right. I feel like I'm like monopolizing. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going, but am I like stopping enough for like, okay.
Nope, you're fine. You're doing
All
great.
right, golden. Well, I'm just gonna keep on going and giving like as many. I'm trying to like give as many of the common exercises and common problems that I see with clients. I'm trying to like give all of those out, whether that means that the listeners can, and you, you being a listener as well, being part of this, whether that means that, you know, you work through this on your own and actually work through these exercises fully, awesome. Or this might just be planting the seed to where down the road, when you hear something similar, it resonates because it wasn't your first time hearing it. And maybe you've heard a lot of these things before, and this is another reminder, whatever the case is. So, money stories. Some of the things that, let's see, I'm looking over at my notes from one of the workshops that I've done on Heal Your Money Story. Thinking through like, what is your story of money? How did that relationship build? So we talked about like as a child, what are some of the first things that you heard about money? And what did you hear your parents or your grandparents or your peers say about money? And like free write, get as much of that down and then look at that and be like, okay, are these beliefs that I want to continue? And if they're not, just like that.
For me, that would be hard because I grew up with a family that you didn't talk about money around the kids. It wasn't any of the kids' business.
Ooh.
You did that wasn't any of the kids' business. They had no concern on the money. The finances was the adults, and the adults dealt with that, and the kids didn't. And even in my household, it was my dad. My mom never wrote a check, never paid a bill. Dad controlled all the finances.
So even if they didn't talk about it, what were some of the messages that you remember, either as a child or once you started realizing like the big role it plays?
I mean, finances were tight, but we never went without.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know like around the holidays, mom would pick up a part-time job so they could have more money to buy gifts for us kids and stuff like that. But mom was a stay-at-home mom. Dad worked, 40-hour week plus job, and, done stuff around the house. And, I grew up, probably lower middle class in the area I grew up in. It wasn't fancy, but, I always had, decent clothes and shoes and, bike and toys, and, I got video games and stuff. And then, when I got old enough, I started working.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked so I could get stuff,
Mm-hmm.
then I worked so I could have a car. Then I worked so I could pay to have the car. And then I worked so I could pay to fix the car.
Yep. Do you feel like you were able to have a neutral relationship with money when you started working for all of those things?
I mean, yeah, I do, because of kind of where I came from, because money was just like, we had family that had money, and I knew this, and I knew they were just loaded, money wasn't an issue to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, it just was what it was. And they spent the money on the family and stuff. It wasn't like they hoarded it or kept it away and stuff. They they would buy gifts for probably 100 people or more for the holidays, and always something for the birthdays and everything. Even if it was a couple dollars in a card.
Mm-hmm.
It was always something, and there was always somebody that was either a birthday or, like the holidays and stuff like that. It was just, you know,
Yeah.
and, I saw that, the people that had money gave it. And even my family, who, like I said, we weren't rich, we weren't poor. Um, we had ample, but, we wasn't living really high on the hog or anything. Um, we gave, when people need it, it was just what you did, someone was in need and you could help them out. You did it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and you give to friends and family and, loved ones and stuff. But then, there was also helping out strangers.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome that that is what you were raised with, that that's what you saw. Um, that feels, to me, hearing that feels neutral and positive. Like it doesn't feel so positive that it's almost like this manic, too
Well,
good to
it
take.
shifted, though, in my early 20s. And that's when I went on disability.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything shifted at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
because I went to about a third of my income.
Yeah.
Actually, less than a third of my income, actually.
Yeah. So if you were to work with healing your money story and doing some of the healing around that, a lot of people, it starts younger to do like some of those root causes that require the healing. For you or someone else that had a drastic shift like that, you would probably want to start from there, from
Right.
that while
Right.
also, I would say too, not just starting from there, but also like what the stories that you just shared of like you would give to those that you knew, those that you didn't know, like that's what you do.
Oh
And I
yeah. And I still do, when I'm able to.
yeah.
It's not something I'm always able to do now, but when I do, or when I can, and sometimes it's in different ways.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think having that neutral energy with money that you had growing up also, of not really hearing about it much and like knowing that it existed, but also knowing that like you would give when you could and that you had others that were giving to you. That neutral space is such a beautiful space to be in, because neutrality is like this space for opportunity also. And so that's an opportunity for beliefs to be formed. And looking at money and your relationship with money, that can also be seen as it's a huge trauma. When you went on disability, not only is that, a trauma, a true trauma for
Right.
yourself, you went through to then get to that point of going on disability, but that's a huge financial trauma and a spiritual trauma. And so it's important to really honor all of the different aspects and, the pain of that trauma and the grief and everything that can be lost there. I think that that's something to not, that I don't want to dismiss.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of loss there because there was a lot of things that I personally had built up and had spent time, collections and stuff. I was really geeky and nerdy, so I collected a lot of really, really off the wall comics and like
Uh-huh.
really obscure sets of different collections and stuff. And it was always the really like hard to find stuff. So it was the stuff that was worth money.
Hmm.
And when it hit at first, I went months without any kind of income and had to sell every single bit of that off at a fraction of the cost just to get by.
Yeah.
So
And
I mean, there was a loss with that, and some people be like, "Oh, well, it was just stuff," but yeah, at that time, it was a drastic loss of things for a reason that was honestly out of my control at that point in time. I couldn't do anything, and it was either do this or go go broke, go hungry, not have an apartment. And
yeah.
so compromises were made and stuff, and I did what I I could. And then when I got money, I got some stuff back, and I got some things that I had to let go. I got not not even a fraction of what I once had, but I got some.
Yeah. And I think honoring that grief and the true reality of that situation is so important because there are some healing things that are all about like love and light and like just go to the positive thoughts and attracting money, and we can't get to that spot. We can't, it's not authentic and truthful to be in that place
Right.
unless we also honor like the true reality and grieve, like truly go through some of the grieving processes of loss.
Well, and see, another part of it for me was at that point in time, I had really started to set my identity around who I was as far as my job, and I was working it into a career. And I was doing different kinds of training and stuff to advance within the company, and was getting top ranks and all this stuff. So I was right on track with where I wanted to be. And then all of a sudden, out of left field, you know that was it. I i wasn't able to continue working. I was lucky enough to get disability my first time through.
Hmm.
And that came down to a really talented doctor who knew just what to say in the notes to
Yeah.
make sure it got through. She had worked with this condition and with the disability review boards enough to know exactly what to say, and she knew if
Hmm.
it was coming from her, not the question.
Hmm.
That she only presented things in a certain way, and so. But I was lucky enough to work with her, and like I even tried to go back to work several times because I was just like I part of it was I was bored. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I went from, a large part of my day occupied to, well, crap, what do I do now?
Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard to figure out what to do with your time and our identities. Like, our identities, most of the time when we meet someone, oh, what do you do?
Right.
And typically that has
sit,
to do with work and
sit,
job.
sit at home and watch the prices right.
It's so funny, like, now when I get that question of, like, what do you do? Depending on, like, what area I'm in, what scenario, I give so many different varieties of answers, but I really like to be like, I play in my backyard. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, I play in my backyard. I play with my chickens and I garden and play a lot. And people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? You are a crazy bitch. And I'm like, I like to play. And so much
It's
of, I
like,
mean, a lot of,
did she forget her medication this morning?
yeah, I know. They're like, all right, you play, cool. And like so much of our identities are built around our work and how we contribute to society. And I love contributing to society in a variety of ways.
Right.
And it's interesting because so much of my identity has been based around work. Like that has been the primary part of my story. Like that was my identity.
Right.
And to not have that as the main part of my identity, and even when I've thought of like, you know, at various times in my business, I've thought of shutting it down. And when I then think of who am I if I'm not a business owner? Oh my God, that's scary for me because that's a big part of my identity. And for me, money and making my own money was a big part of safety. I started working really young and I got really lucky and I had a lot of privilege to be able to make good money really young. And because of that, I was able to have a lot more opportunities. And I recognize that privilege, and that's a foundational piece of my identity to where if that's gone, if my ability to make money is gone, then who am I? Like,
Right.
if that's been how I feel important, like, whew, that can really send you into an existential crisis, which it has for me many times. And I've
I
like
mean, I went through that. I went through the. Well, crap. I don't have any income other than eventually what I was getting from a disability check from SSDI.
mm-hmm.
And that was only a small fraction. I was living. I think originally my first check was like $725 a month back when I was 24.
Yeah.
And now 20 years later I get just a little over $1,000 a month to live on.
Yeah.
And that's what I do this on, and uh, there's definitely times at the end of the month I'm stressing over the finances. It's am I going to have enough to make everything stretch?
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid I get a little extra in there.
Off a little.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, I can get a little wiggle room and get something extra thrown in there. And this isn't me complaining or griping. This is me just being honest about what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's times I come down at the end of the month and I'm stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and we talked about this before, and I've talked about this with Demian and some other people. I know I need to start marketing the show in a manner to where I can start getting some income coming in from it.
Uh-huh.
And I have got the PayPal and I've got the Amazon wish list, and the links are in the description below. and they've been there since a few days after our show. It just took some time for the links to. It was mainly waiting on everything with the PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
And I have received some donations, and I've gotten donations that's allowed me to do some things like upgrade my Streamlabs to premium that allowed me to be able to move over to streaming on YouTube instead of on Twitch. Yeah. Where I have more freedom and the shows go up immediately afterwards. I don't have to wait 24 hours.
Yeah.
So if someone missed the show and it's, we're wrapping up, they can go ahead and start watching it immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as we go off the air, the show is up there for someone to watch. That saves me a
And
lot of trouble.
so congratulations. I'm so proud that you allowed yourself to receive, because that's a big piece. Like, letting ourselves receive. We would think that if we have financial struggles, if we want more, if we desire more, even if it's a neutral, not obsessive desire, it would make sense that we would be okay with receiving.
Right.
But so often we're not. Either we don't request it, or we don't, but often, like, we don't receive it. Like, there's so many of us that when somebody tries to give us something, we don't graciously receive it. And a piece of that is, can be ego. There's so many different things that it can be, but so often that's also like the feminine energy. And it's interesting when I work with men and women on receiving abundance, including financial abundance. That's kind of surrendering into that feminine energy. And that can be really uncomfortable, especially in the world that we live in, where it's like, go, 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 do, prove that you're worth it, prove that you've earned it. Sometimes receiving can be really difficult.
Right. I mean, I've like, the headphones that I'm using right now are a gift that I received. The microphone I'm using right now is a gift that I received. There's a stack of books and some other things that are gifts that I've received for the show and for myself. And, I'm grateful for each and every one of them and stuff. But it's one of those things. It's just like, it's still strange getting it.
And I find that interesting as you're sharing that, that is, yes, for you. You can enjoy those things also, but it's also for the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's an energy to kind of like lean into and connect with also, that is this collective energy of somebody else seeing the value in what you offer and wanting to support that so that others can continue hearing the podcast. And I think that that's so beautiful. And I think that, like, I love when people have like an Amazon wish list, because, or like have specific PayPal or Venmo links of like, buy me a coffee or do this or do, and it's something specific, because then we can envision like, oh, I can envision him getting that coffee, or, oh, he wants this book. I think it would be really great if I get him that book and then he can talk about it on the podcast with somebody.
Right. I've got a whole stack of books I'm going to be doing that with,
Yeah.
and that's mainly what's on my my Amazon wish list is books and stuff to read, review, go over, because one of the things I want to do with the show is, besides doing the episodes like this, I want to start doing videos where I review books. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. And so, but there's some things on there like I need in order to be able to do that. Like, I need a bigger hard drive for my computer for storage space for the video to be able to record the video, then edit the video. And because right now I do not have the storage space on the computer to do that. So
I feel that.
Yeah. And so doing all that's like, okay, I've got the tools to be able to do it. I got a little bit of the knowledge to be able to do it, but I don't have the capacity to do it. Literally, the capacity.
I don't think that Amazon has a way of like doing anyone like purchasing part of something, but that could be something that you could even put like a specific link in some way of like donate.
I've got a hard drive up on Amazon that I want.
But that would be something thing, I think.
No, it's just a hard drive.
But can somebody? But how much is the hard drive though?
It's like $84.
Not bad. So there you go, listener. Somebody invite a friend to listen to this, and you all like tune in and be like, "Oh wow, we get so much value from Breaking Reality podcast." And buy them the hard drive. Come on, people. And I think that like when we give, it's also really important that we are honoring the value of money and honoring what it's going to give, what need it's going to fulfill. And so often, when you think of like, for whatever reason, my mind is going to like Asian lantern festivals. I don't know why that's what the vision that my mind is giving me. But like thinking of like money, of like, okay, like I wish this money, like whispering a little wish into money and being like, whoo, off, create dreams. But like often when like we give money to somebody, like I love donating to creators that I really like. If they have a product, I try buying the product. I've bought so many ebooks and things because I'm like, oh, I might get value from the ebook, but I really want to support this person.
Right.
I do the same with like coaches that I follow because I'm in the coaching industry. I'll follow coaches, and if I get a lot of really great content from their free material, like perfect. I'm going to buy this thing to financially support them because I feel like I've already received that benefit, and I want them to be able to continue having the bandwidth and the energy to put more of this out into the world, because I think that others should receive the wealth of knowledge or the information or the entertainment even that someone's putting out.
Right.
And I love being able to, if somebody has like the little donate button on things, I love going to that. It makes me so happy.
See, like one of the things that I'm working on, and yet again, it's that hard drive that's kind of holding me up right now, is the Patreon. I'm wanting to do a Patreon, and on that, I'm going to offer different teaching series on there on different subjects. One will be on mythological creatures and beings. Another one will be on deity or gods, goddesses, deities, and demigods. And another one will be different religions of the world. And each month, I'll go into one or a number of, depending on what it takes to fill out content for the month. Something in each one of those topics. And so people can sign up for 1, 2, or all 3 on the Patreon at different payment levels and get access to those. And then I'll have access on the Discord that will be for the Patreons only to discuss those things that come out each month, so they can interact as a community and ask questions and, have more of an interaction with everything.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so, yeah. And it's once again, just needing the capacity to start holding the material so I can put it together. Because I want to have several months of that put together, since that would be something that would be monthly content coming out. And it's a significant amount of content.
Yeah.
I want to have a few months in advance prepared with it.
Have it ready so that you don't like get to, oh my gosh, more's due tomorrow. I gotta.
Yeah, exactly. And here I am, trying to slap something together at 3 a.m.
Yeah. One of the things that I love doing when I'm sharing really anything, when I'm given a platform like this, is calling myself out on some things. And so I want to call out some of the ways that I found myself in icky situations with the coaching industry and with business, because I like using myself as an example so that others can maybe see some of that in themselves, or just see that it's okay to like call yourself out in the areas you fell short.
We're getting close to the time that you wanted to stop too, just so you know.
I was keeping an eye. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Which is where I was like, let me call myself out, and like I'm thinking through other things that I feel are really important to share. So thank you so much for keeping an eye on time, and I'm cool if we go over a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't want to keep
so
you up too late.
I appreciate it. I just love the boundaries and the clear communication you've got. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So in the coaching industry, when I started getting a busier and busier schedule, I was being told all of these things from the coaching industry and from the business industry and all of these things that I wasn't seeing any other kind of pushback. I was just seeing this is the way you do it.
Right.
When your schedule fills up, you raise your prices. When it fills up at that, you raise your prices. And I really want to encourage everyone to like think for themselves on why thing in life, like question everything. And for me, I got into this rut, like a really good rut. I was on this roller coaster of like making money, and I was having people wanting to schedule with me all the time, and I wasn't able to take them all on. So what solution do you have but to raise your rate? So I would raise my rate. I would then get booked out at that rate, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I charge more. I would raise my rate again. Okay, well, I guess I charge more. Was I offering more value? Possibly. Was I? I mean, who's to say? Money is and value is such an odd thing. And it was a really strange thing because I kept raising my rate and I kept filling up, and I'm like, okay. And people were getting great results. And sometimes people were even getting like better results when they invested a lot of money because they had so much invested in it.
Right.
There is something to say for that.
Right. Because they had something invested into it, they were willing to put work into what needed to be done. Instead of just going, oh, I threw a bunch of money at that. Forget that,
Yeah. And I've seen that. I've seen clients that will throw money at working with me. And if they're just throwing money at a problem and they're not invested in truly desiring the change and willing to put in the work to get that change, they're not going to get it.
Right.
And so, I mean, there are so many caveats to that I was seeing. I'm distracted because all of a sudden I realized, are you okay if we go over?
Oh, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. Like I said, I was prepared for a 2-hour show, so.
Okay. All of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I thanked him for respecting the time and my boundaries, and I didn't even check in on his.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you for asking, though.
So I got into this rut of like, oh, I charge this and I charge this and I guess I'm charging more. And I got to this point where I was charging like so much. And then it was like a really strange thing too, because yes, I do still feel I wouldn't have raised my prices to that rate if I didn't feel confident that I could provide the service that the people were looking for.
Well,
like, it wasn't
and it's a weird dynamic though, because people are demanding that service, and that demand sets the rates.
Yeah.
When you're in such demand that you've got, and there's something to be said about, and this is coming from someone who doesn't have a lot of money to throw at stuff, but there's something to be said about paying a large sum of money to have someone as an expert in the field work with you on something, to know that you're working with the best of the best. And if that means throwing a high price at that, it's worth it.
It was really interesting for me because once I started receiving more and more money, it actually taught me a lot, because before I raised my rates every time, I would check in with if I felt okay with it. And I would only raise them when I felt okay with it. But then it kind of got to this point where a lot of my identity was based around that. And it's like, oh, I charge this much. And like, that was gross. It was just gross. And like, I started just a big part of my identity was like, see, I'm a valuable coach because I charge X amount per month. And like, it was just shitty. It got weird.
That was the ego taking over.
It was. And I had to really bring myself back to the thought process that I went through when I genuinely felt called to raise my rates. Because often I felt called to raise my rates because of what it would provide me that would provide better service. And I would get comments from people of like, oh, that must be nice that you're making enough to do X, Y, Z. I'm like, well, yeah, it is. And it's necessary. Like for me, I was able to give clients better care because I was able to do all of these things because I was charging the higher rates. But then I realized I've priced myself out from so many people that need what I have to offer. And so I kind of like stopped any marketing for my one-on-one coaching for a long time because I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't really know where I want to go with this. And I had to like put all of that on the back burner and just kind of like wait for spirit to show me like, okay, what do you feel okay with doing? And what are you actually being called to do? And I'm still now figuring that out because I still have very high prices. Still have very high prices. And I don't feel right most of the time lowering them. I do sliding scale. And when somebody asks me for a different price, I offer that. But every program now I've realized the need for accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tricky conversation to have with people when you're doing sliding scale offerings of, okay, what are you able to pay? And let's talk about this. Like, who's the judge then? Am I the judge of like, if I should give this to them for this discounted rate? Like, it's weird. And I'm still in that figuring it out place. So I'm calling myself out for that also, that I don't have all of the answers on how to do that. And I think that the foundational piece of that is you have to question everything. You can't go by what one indoctrination, one teaching, one coaching program, no matter how many testimonials they have, what they go by. Like, you have to really tune into what is your gut telling you? What is your spirit telling you of how to proceed with this? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that in certain situations, that person that's willing to pay you the stupidly high amount, let them pay you the stupidly high amount, even if it's above and beyond what you would normally ask for those services. Yeah. Because on the counterbalance, you have that person down there that needs your services but can't afford them.
Yeah.
And so let that balance the books.
And that's why I love donation offerings. Like you're saying that you have your Amazon wish list and that you have like the PayPal option. I love that if somebody wants to give you $1 to show appreciation, that's amazing.
And even on my Patreon, I've got like, I think a $2 and a $5, which are just a little extra Discord channels. It's not getting into the teaching series. And the reason I'm charging more for the teaching series is because it's got a lot more time put into it. I've got to specifically schedule out my time to work on that, to put, the energy and effort into it. So, and I really want to do it right too. So it's not going to be something I'm just going to, slap together and, there's cost that's going to come into it that I would really like to be able to get some things done. Like I'd like to get an animated intro and outro for the show. Just something to play, a few minutes coming in, and then, a few minutes in the closing and stuff. And, just stuff along those lines. And so, but that takes money.
Yeah.
That takes someone's time and services, which costs.
Sometimes it can take creativity or things other than money. So to push against you a little bit with that, there might be somebody that either they've already discovered your show and they have that skill and ability and they want to bless you in that way because they want you to have that for the show. There could also be somebody that you find that doesn't already watch the show, but that would be aligned that you could connect with. And I love finding like different bartering opportunities and things that are like.
I'm always down for stuff like that too, and things along those lines. Yeah. I like doing stuff like that. I've done that in the past with different things and stuff as well. So
So any listeners that, can make animated intro outros, like right there. Well, anything else to kind of wrap up that you were hoping we would cover, or that you want to kind of chat about or ask about or anything?
I don't necessarily think so. would have been interesting to have Demian here with us tonight with
Mhm.
his perspectives on money.
Yeah.
But Demian's got interesting perspectives with it too.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I love hearing different views, and especially when we're all sensitive, intuitive people, to almost connect with, okay, what is the energy of money that you're connected with right now, and that you're connected with, and that you're connected with, and like finding the similarities and the differences, and being able to talk about those and discuss them and feel into them in a safe container, to try to understand everyone's relationship with the energy of money, I think is so much fun.
yeah, I mean, it really is an interesting ordeal, and like I said, mine has been shifting and changing. Of course, I started putting things out there. I'm not pushing it as hard per se,
Mhm.
but at least the links are out there at this point in time. But there is, there's things I'm looking at. It's more marketing and stuff that I'm looking at right now more than anything. Just
Mhm.
where to get the show out in the right areas.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now how to do that.
Yeah, and there's the aspect of the how to do that, and the actual getting it to happen.
Right.
And there's also the big piece of receiving it. And it sounds like you've been doing that work of, being more comfortable with receiving and attracting that abundance, and being open to the opportunities, as they present themselves to you for various types of abundance and support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, it's like you even mentioned earlier, abundance isn't just necessarily financial either. And there's great abundance in so many different areas and stuff too.
Yeah.
So, but I know you need to get going because you've got an important meeting in the morning and we can't keep you up too late.
It's so, when I talk about energy of stuff, and when I connect with somebody else, that just like that amps me up. And so it takes me a while to like come back down, and I have an in-depth deep dive session tomorrow that I want to be sure that I'm well rested and at my best for.
And I'm no way near my normal energy levels tonight either, so
Well, I hope that you feel better.
I am. I'm feeling okay. I'll get through the night and stuff, and it's one of those things. It's been acting up and stuff, so I've got an appointment Monday, Tuesday,
Mhm.
Monday, I think, um, with my surgeon. So I'll be discussing things with him then. I think we was going to try to hold off doing it, but I might start getting insistent on getting the surgery set up sooner than later.
Mm. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, just at this point in time, even if it's a temporary fix for a few months, at least give me a few months to really be able to focus on everything and then, look at it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, good luck.
thank you. All right. I want to say thank you to Liz for being here. It's been such a great time having you here. Um, it's always a pleasure. I imagine we will talk about something else to have you back on the show to discuss again soon.
That'd be
Uh,
great.
yeah, well, I'm definitely going to be booking out for. Well, I'm working on booking for September now, so if you want to come back with a topic in September, let me know.
All right. Sounds good.
Thursday night, I don't have anyone scheduled currently. I think, depending on how I am feeling, I will continue my second part on the happiness and gratitude discussion that I was doing on the solo show that I done last. We have moved Lauren Perkins from this Monday the 9th, which has already happened, to the 16th. She had a scheduling conflict, so she asked to move, and I didn't get to update anyone on that. Sean Kala will be on Tuesday the 17th, and we're going to be discussing reincarnation in the afterlife. And then Chris Grant will be on at 7 p.m. on the 19th. And we are going to be discussing this Vedic astrological chart thing that he does. And he did this whole workup on me, and it's confusing. But he will explain it. So, once again, thank you for being here, Liz. It's been a great time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And down below are those links if you're interested in the Amazon wish list or the PayPal. And I'm only saying this because I'm sure Liz is going to yell at me if I don't.
Thanks for having me, and way to go putting that out there. And if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm on Facebook, Liz Foy or Foy Coaching, and also on Instagram is just Foy Fun with dots between each word.
I have your Instagram and your website, foycoaching.com, in the descriptions, so people can check those out in the descriptions as well. So,
yeah.
All right, everybody, have a good night and be blessed.